unit. Again, this is Hegan Kogan. We're in A10 and we're getting into the Progressive Reform unit. And the first thing we're going to deal with is the spoil system. So a lot of vocabulary in this lesson. A lot of things need to be reformed. And when we're looking at reform, you're thinking in terms of changing. So if things are going to be changed in this unit, there's a lot of things that are broken.
Yeah, like as like an ELA teacher would break down, like the root word of reform is form.
Right.
You know, to make something. And then the root or the prefix re means to do over. You know, so you're remaking something to make it better than it was previously.
So in previous units when we talked about city populations going up and we kind of touched on government, there's a lot of things that the public didn't know of that'll get exposed in this unit that was going on that needs to be changed. We'll see.
If you follow politics today,
Oh my
you
God.
know that politics tend to be corrupt.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you think it's bad today, go back 140 years ago.
Oh, it's horrible. That's horrible. Even with just, I mean, you talk about voting today. I mean, one of the things that we're getting into probably later on when we talk about voting is that, you know, you would take somebody in New York City to go and vote. He would start off with a beard. He'd go and vote.
Long hair.
Yeah, he'd go and vote. Go and like shave part of his beard, have like a goatee left, go and vote again.
Change his jacket.
Change his jacket or whatever, go and vote a third time, have a mustache, and then finally go another time where he's clean shaven. I mean, that's just a tip of the iceberg of some of the horrible things or the stupidity that was taking place in the late 1800s. And
I
early
wouldn't call it
1900s.
stupidity. I'd call it creativity from those who were in power.
Sure, absolutely.
They were not breaking any rules at the time.
Not yet, not at the time. Right, but you know when you had certain people that were looking around, and well, wait a minute, you know, there's just something wrong with this. Those people who wanted to change the stupidity and the things that were wrong or corrupt were referred to as progressives. These were reformers who wanted to improve American life. So some of the things that we saw.
Progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just progress.
Progress. Where there's a problem, there's going to be that's kind of how this unit's going to work. Problem solution.
Yep.
Problem solution. So when you probably saw previous units when there were certain problems that were there, whether it be hygiene and sanitation and tenements, children on the street,
overcrowding in factories,
women not being allowed to vote, which was something that even took place in the middle of the 1800s. This is where you start to see these things get addressed and exposed. Reform, we're going to make changes here. Real simple. When you're thinking in terms of this unit, progress and reform, making changes, something typically a social, political, or economic institution or practice in order to improve it. And then Gilded, when we talk a lot about this particular time period, they also refer to it as the Gilded Age, which came from Mark Twain, who referred to something as pretty on the outside.
The gilded lily.
Yeah, pretty on the outside, just ugly on the inside, implies falseness.
Yeah, well, if you remember back to the Industrial Revolution and, you know, our Rockefellers, Carnegies, Vanderbilts, J.P. Morgans, Jacob Astors, you know, like, these people were richer than anyone could ever imagine. There was no income tax at the time, so every cent that these people made, they kept.
Yeah.
And the gap between the rich and the poor at this time was so dramatic, and these people were living in like such opulence. Look at that big word.
Ooh.
We're living in such opulence. And if you went to New York City, you could literally see it, because like you'd stand there on Fifth Avenue looking at a mansion, turn around, and be looking at a tenement.
Yeah.
You know, and it was this Gilded Age.
The haves and the have-nots. You know, I mean, there was more have-nots than haves, but you didn't really see as much of that. So here it was pretty on the outside, ugly on the middle. So the first thing we're going to look at that's a problem is going to be the spoil system. So since we kind of talked a little bit about voting, the first thing that's going to be a problem is the spoil system. Now, if you're spoiled or have a sibling that's spoiled, these are usually people who get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So think in terms of that. And since this is kind of bringing us back to the Andrew Jackson presidency, this is kind of where it, I guess, maybe not started, but you have a lot of popular instances are taking place here.
And this is a great political cartoon to break down. There's so many images to analyze. Symbology, if you would. Inside joke. But we've got Andrew Jackson here, and he is not riding on a horse, he is riding on a pig. And the pig has always been a symbol of greed.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, you can see the dollar signs all throughout.
Just in case you're not getting the greed, you know, the money there as well.
You know, and then the words underneath the pig, it says fraud, it says bribery, it says plunder. We even have a skull here.
Yeah. Looks like part of the tip of a femur bone, maybe.
Wow.
behind the skull?
Femur bones.
Maybe.
Yeah, but possibly. I was going more the humerus. The humor.
Well, I figured
humerus.
if there's going to be a skull there, if there's going to be a crossbones, it's got to be femur bones.
True. And to the victor go the spoils, or to the victor belongs the spoils. You win. You win. You get to do what you want.
And I would imagine, just with all the things that you pointed out, you know, the greed, the pig, the spoils, a lot of this is just screaming out negativity right in here. This is really not something that you want to be proud of. If you're riding on a pig and you were a Army general at one point and you're Andrew Jackson, this is really not a good look.
Yeah.
You know, you're not
it's not Washington on his white horse Nelson.
Yeah. If you're on a pig that squeals and oh gosh. So what really it meant by that is that once you got into office as the president, or many public officials for that matter, you now had government jobs that you could give out to people. Now, when it came to that, this was the practice of rewarding supporters with government jobs.
I used to show a great video of this.
Yeah.
To really hammer home the spoil system, to recognize it still happens today.
Oh, yeah.
And neither party is immune from it.
Nope.
You know, because I show a video of President Obama's appointees as ambassadorships.
And a lot of those guys...
It's like, oh, you're going to be the ambassador to Nicaragua. Have you ever been to Nicaragua? No.
Do you speak any Spanish?
No.
Yeah, it's just...
Or you have like President Trump, you know, with our Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. One of the reasons why she's there is because she donated millions of dollars to his election campaign.
So on the big boy level, I guess you could say it hasn't really been worked out just yet. But when you're talking to local, middle class, county, civil service type of jobs, that's where it's been organized. But in terms of like I get elected, it's like, wait a minute, you donated $50 million to my campaign. What job do you want? And the thing is that when you look at the problem with that patronage that was taking place, you had people who were getting hired to certain jobs like secretary, and they couldn't even read or write.
Yeah.
But you were getting a paycheck.
They even show this in the movie Lincoln.
Yeah.
You know, when he's trying to get the 13th Amendment ratified, it's like, hey, if you vote yes, what do you want to be, Postmaster General of Ohio? Sure, absolutely. I'll get you that job.
So the problem there is that people who are qualified, you know, we're talking at this patronage, this is controlled. You get in there, and anybody who helped you out, voted for you, or handed out flyers or pins, now you're going to help out your boys, so to speak, and give them jobs. How should people be getting jobs? Based on, I don't know, ability?
Yeah.
A resume? Education?
Yeah, possibly.
Experience? You know, not this like good old boys club where it's like, you help me out, this is how I'm going to
it's like Mr. He gets elected county commissioner, whatever.
Okay.
You know, and, you know, I'm like, hey, my son needs a job. You know, he's an ex-criminal, you know, and he really can't find work. Oh, I'll make him chief of police.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of like what was going on.
Yeah, that's
exactly what this spoil system was at the time.
And if
my
we
son's
didn't tell
only
him,
13, he's not a criminal.
And if we didn't tell them about the voting thing, they'd be like, all right, wait a minute, this is really getting stupid at this point. But these are things that actually happen.
Absolutely.
So what winds up changing this, though, is the fact that, well, you see some problems with this. Stupid people getting jobs who weren't qualified for it. Then the other thing is that what winds up happening, and we kind of elicit this out of the discussion, is that what are some problems with this? Well, somebody can get promised a job, not get the job, and then want to kill the person who was elected. And if that's what you were thinking at home, that's exactly what happened. So Charles Guiteau, this was a guy that hung around the James Garfield campaign when he was running for president, and felt that because he was, I mean, the guy was later to be found completely insane. The guy felt that since he was kind of around a lot, that he should have been given a job. So James Garfield did not last too long in office. Winds up getting elected in 1880, and that was pretty much it. When it came, there was a connection I was having here, because we have Taft, we have Woodrow Wilson, and then in the background here, this is Abraham Lincoln's son. The reason I bring this up is that Lincoln's son had now been through a couple of presidents, and anyone that he was present with or met winds up actually getting killed in office or dies in office. So when and this also kind of goes into that whole zero factor, where presidents who were elected in a year ending in 0, they wound up dying in office.
Or had an assassination attempt against them.
Right. At this point, and the reason I bring it up is because this is like the second time this is going to happen, is that you know, he had been around presidents, and anytime he had been around certain presidents, they wound up dying. So there were quite a few historians who pointed out this image where if you're looking at him, he is like deathly afraid here because this is inauguration day for Taft, and he just wants to get the heck out of there because he feels like he's a curse or bad luck. So back to Charles Guiteau, when we get into this political cartoon, he's in office or your life, and he winds up
Assassinating.
at a train station, you know,
The second time in our nation's history.
you know, again, 20 years later from the first assassination, do you have people protecting him? Not to the point you did today. The thing with this one is that, well, he doesn't die instantly, similar to Lincoln.
What happens
Yeah.
here, you know,
I think I have something
his
on it.
wound.
No, I don't.
His wound today would not have been fatal.
Nope.
And there's some evidence, but also conspiracy theory speculation that the doctors who were treating him were not treating them to the best of their ability. They were kind of going in there with like probes and reopening the wound, just to like stick it around in there because some people feel like these doctors were like, oh, they didn't get a job that they had wanted
Right.
under Garfield.
Oh, God.
So they were actually trying to purposefully not kill him, but make him suffer. Yeah, really some
And
really
the thing
weird
is that when they were going
conspiracy
in with those with their hands on this particular wound,
Yeah.
there's no latex gloves, there's no wash up before you actually go and treat a patient. So this is the problem. You have buddies getting put into jobs that they clearly don't deserve. So what do? We come up with a system for it, and today we refer to it as the civil service exams. Particularly with police jobs, those are usually the ones, especially when you're looking at Suffolk County. You know, you go, you take a test, then all of a sudden, all those tests are graded. Whoever gets called first is the highest score.
Yeah. You and I have both taken civil service exams.
Dozens.
You know, whether it was
Dozens.
police, fire. You know, my dad was a New York City firefighter, and he's like, look, even if you don't want to do it,
Right.
take the
It's
test.
a nice option.
Take the test, and that'd be our recommendation anyway. Take the test.
So here, the Pendleton Act makes the Civil Service Commission to conduct exams for federal jobs.
Yeah. If you are going to work for the government in any capacity, you are going to be taking a civil service exam.
Absolutely.
Unless it's an elected position.
Yeah, I mean, it says federal jobs here, but I mean, we all know
Eventually
county
becomes-
jobs,
becomes
city
state,
jobs,
counties,
government,
and local.
county, yep, absolutely. Includes all federal jobs except elected officials, which you have to get elected for, or the military.
Yep.
So when we look at what exactly Mr. Kogan was saying
Top one,
here,
yep.
yep, there we go. You know, this is how I would find out where I could take a job, where I could take a test for a job. Public health nurse, social services examiner, and then of course you have to actually pay a fee to actually take this test. You usually go and take it on a Saturday, sit down, and they usually, is this gonna work? Yeah, they'll give you everything you need to know about this. The starting salary, when you have to have it in, the description of the job, the minimum qualifications, and of course, you know, you see it like not knowing an elected official, notes, and they have all of this stuff in there when it comes to that. This good old civil service. Gosh, how many of those tests did you take?
I took New York City Police, New York City Fire, Suffolk Cop, Nassau Cop.
I
I think I even took corrections.
Yeah,
I think I took that one as well.
yeah. It was usually Saturday morning,
Yep.
and then you would
At
done
like
hanging.
8 o'clock. It's like, really? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't do like 9:30. Couldn't do 9:30.
Are we leaving anything out here with
No.
civil service?
No.
All right, well, I guess we'll move on to the next one. Thank you for watching.